Did that work? Yeah, I think it did. Okay. Hmm. Share this screen really quick. All right, let's just dive right in. Boom. All right. So today we're going to be talking about the translation of the Book of Mormon, of course. That's the lots of people here, sorry. So that's the topic I chose to discuss. We're going to go in depth about the process, about the scribes, and the overall impact that the translation of this book had on the world. And this title makes it seem like I translated the Book of Mormon. I did not. That's just, I wrote the PowerPoint. All right, let's dive right in. So, Joseph Smith translated the Book of Mormon from the gold plates which he found. And as Nephi tells us, they were written in Reformed Egyptian. And the translation was done by the gift and power of God using instruments. Now, the main ones we know about are the Urim and Thummim, or as they're sometimes called, seer stones. Now, what exactly do the Urim and Thummim do? Should I move this camera? There we go. So they helped Joseph interpret the ancient writings and really helped him, like, they were basically like spiritual binoculars that helped him see the revelation a lot clearer, like glasses. And the seer stones were set in this frame. Sometimes it describes it like a chest plate. And you can see two different examples of what that might have looked like. And as well, at certain times, he used just plain seer stones, which he would put into a hat, put his face up to the hat so it would block out the light and he could just focus on the revelation. And honestly, that I think is something that can be taught on lots of levels, that sometimes we need to block out the distractions of the rest of the world to truly hear God. Like for Joseph, he had to put his head into a hat, block out everything else so he could hear God. And now more than ever, we have a lot of distractions. President Nelson's famous talk about how men are always distracted by March Madness, stock market updates, and texts and stuff like that. We have to be vigilant, even more so now than Joseph Smith ever had to be, because we have a lot more distractions. Anyways, so the translation process, it went like this. Joseph, either using the Urim Thummim or the seer stone, he would dictate the transcription to the scribes. He would go word for word, and they'd write it down slowly. Many times he'd stop without even seeing what they're writing and say, that was wrong. Write it again. I said this. He knew exactly what was supposed to be written, and he made sure the scribes wrote exactly that. This talks about Martin Harris, who was one of the first scribes. He recorded the translation in the early stages. And little known fact, Emma was also one of his earliest scribes, his wife, Emma Smith. Now, the role of the scribes, this goes more into it. Emma Smith, she was the first one, and then it went Oliver Cowdery and Martin Harris. Oliver Cowdery served as the primary scribe. He was there for the longest amount of time, wrote the most amount of the Book of Mormon, or I guess transcribed it from Joseph Smith's words. And without the scribes, it would not have been possible. Some interviewer, I can't remember the story fully perfectly, so don't quote me on it, but some interviewer was talking to Emma Smith about if her husband was faking all of this. And she sort of, it always seemed like a roast when I heard this story. She sort of says, my husband can't even write a well-ly worded letter. And it's like, well, kind of a roast, Emma. But it just, I guess, lends to the truth that Joseph could not have written this on his own. it could only be from God, divine intervention. And how do we know that any of this is real? Well, witnesses. We ourselves can be witnesses, of course, but we have three official witnesses that saw the gold plates. First three were Oliver Cowdery, David Whitmer, and Martin Harris, and they testified they saw the gold plates and even heard the voice of God. Later, he shows it to 8 other men, and they saw and handled the plates. So we have witnesses, and they've all stood by their testimony that the Book of Mormon is true. Many of them left the church at times and came back, but never once went back on their word and on their witness of the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon. And it's funny, people will talk about that, about the witnesses, and say, "Oh, that's not valid proof." No, Joseph Smith just showed it to a few of his loyal followers who believed. And then say to them, like, and the Bible, who did Jesus Christ show up to? A few of his loyal followers, right? Did you see Jesus? I didn't see Jesus. Most of the other people didn't see Jesus. And yet we go off the word of those witnesses. I don't understand how it's that much different with the Book of Mormon, but yeah, it's what it is. And the role of revelation in the translation process. So the Holy Spirit played a very important role. It was much less Joseph being a translator, like a scholar, and much more the Spirit giving him the tools he needed to make it happen. Now, the impacts of the church on society are huge. Most of us have been on missions. The church is worldwide, and we've seen that. It's helped millions come to the understanding of the true gospel of Jesus Christ. And the Book of Mormon's global impact is even more. Translated in over 100 languages, influenced millions of people. It even has a play, which we're not going to talk about today. Anyways, to conclude, translation process of the Book of Mormon was a divine act guided by God through Joseph Smith. 2, the witnesses and testimonies of those who participated in the process confirm the truth of Joseph Smith's role as the prophet. And 3, the Book of Mormon has changed the world, bringing millions closer to Christ and impacting people's lives for eternity. That's my spiel, and have a great day. I don't know how to stop recording.